Before I start, I'd like you to join me in acknowledging Kate Prevera, whose genius, foresight, and persistence really started the certificate program for nonprofit management. I see Mary Heidkamp in the audience, and she and I were lucky enough to be with Kate. And when I say persistence, remember dial-up AOL? And one day Kate said, I have a new ISP. I didn't even know what an ISP was, but she was really there on the cutting edge. It was great. So as I thought about the topic of today's panel, I reflected on the fact that, I've had this hiatus. I was president of the Woodstock Institute about 20 years ago, and then I was in the for-profit sector with Shore Bank, and now I'm back as a nonprofit director. So I tried to think about what's the same and what's different. And I found there's a lot that is the same, and some things that are very, very different. First of all, the thing I was really pleased to find as a mission-driven person is that the nonprofit voice is as important as ever. We're needed to ensure equity for disadvantaged populations, underserved communities, and really critical issues. At the time I was at Woodstock, we were a voice for unequal credit situations in neighborhoods, and we found that foundations always wanted to measure impact. Very difficult thing to do. And today, they still want to measure impact. So that is the same. The voice is needed, and impact is really critical. The second thing that I think is the same is that collaborations and partnerships really help stretch the dollars. And certainly, when I was at Woodstock, we did a lot of collaborating. The CRA agreement that we got with for Chicago, which really started a whole chain of events that leads on to today, was a collaborative effort among people who didn't normally collaborate. And that was very exciting and a very rich experience, and I think was the secret to the success. Because no matter what we said in those meetings with the bank, there was somebody on the team who was really an expert, who spoke from their grounded experience in neighborhoods. The third thing that I think is the same is that networking is really key to building new business and new opportunities for your organization. And that's even true when we're staffing a networking event like today. I think of the works that the Delta Institute does with the Great Lakes Forum, where we bring researchers together around what's going on in the Great Lakes. And they come up with innovative new ideas on everything from invasive species to the quality of the water and the quantity of the water. So that's the same. And then finally, another thing that really struck me that is the same is the need for there to be more incubation, where strong organizations can provide the operational support to give birth to new organizations. And two examples come to mind. First of all, when I was at Woodstock, we started the Chicago Community Loan Fund. A lot of people don't know that, but that was a project of the Woodstock Institute. Then we hired Kate Prevera, who took it on and grew it into its own organization. Today, we are thinking about, or Delta has done that. Delta Institute has started the Rebuilding Exchange, which is a materials reuse nonprofit that trains ex-offenders in deconstruction, which is a growing industry. So once again, the operational support from a strong organization can give birth to something that can take on its own life, grow up, and really do other things. But there's a lot that's different when I think about these times today that we live in. I was struck by the fact that GRIST just reported that 100,000 nonprofits closed their doors in 2010. And that's likely to continue, particularly with the current budget cuts. So what's different is that advocacy is much harder to do because of the information overload that we're all suffering from. As a result, advocacy has taken on new methods. Occupy Wall Street. I mean, it's an old method and a new method. And they've combined sort of the use of technology that was used so effectively in the Arab Spring to do a meetup on Wall Street and downtown Chicago. I pass them every day as I go to my office. That's really exciting to me. Secondly, public sector dollars are endangered in a way I have never seen before. Yes, the state of Illinois is paying slow, but guess what? I'm not sure they're going to pay it all over the next 3 to 5 years. It's that serious. And so how do we scramble and survive that kind of a crisis? We certainly can't look to the federal government. They have their own deficits. So it's going to be rough times, and it certainly behooves us as nonprofits to think very carefully about the populations we serve and how we're going to find the money to do that. And it's not going to come from individual donors. I know that's the largest source of fundraising, and we must continue to attract those people to our fundraising base. But there's a lot of donor fatigue out there. Everybody's got a story. Everyone knows that you tell your story, and that's the best way to raise money. Well, it's difficult to get your voice heard these days. So what have we done as survivors to face these issues? Well, we've been creative, and we've done some really interesting things. First of all, there's a lot of talk out there, some action, around how we really achieve true operational efficiencies. Technology has given us a wonderful tool. The recession has given us a lot of role models in the private sector about how you really maximize every dollar that you get. And I think nonprofits are beginning to learn that lesson, which is a good thing. And some of that will mean mergers. Nonprofits that can combine together, eliminate duplication, and really be stronger as a result. Another way we've done that is private sector partnerships. Now, those have been around forever, but I see a new emphasis on that and new and creative ways. And let me give you an example. Recently, the Rebuilding Exchange, the project of the Delta Institute, was asked by Bank of America to deconstruct 100 homes out of their foreclosure portfolio. These are homes that have no useful life left. So that's more expensive than demolition, but it creates lots of jobs. The waste stream is rich with jobs, and it's very local, so keep that in mind. So we are training people on how to take those houses apart and selling the materials that we can recover from those houses for do-it-yourselfers and others. So it's a really interesting partnership. We solve a problem for B of A. What are they going to do with these homes? 2, we employ new people and give people jobs in a time when that's really important. Secondly, another new way is public sector partnerships. As I said, the budget deficits are real, they're serious, and they don't know what to do. So often you see these combinations, and I'll give you an example from Delta. We received money from the EPA to work on brownfields. Brownfields are polluted properties, vacant properties all over the country. There used to be money for remediation to clean up the pollution. That money is pretty much gone, except for the Superfund sites. So we were asked by Elkhart, Indiana, to take a look at some brownfields they had. So we did the research. We found that if we planted poplar trees on those sites, the poplar trees are very quick growing, and they would take up the pollution from the soil. Very, very cheap way to clean up that ground. And guess what? They're fast growing, so in 5 or 6 years they can be harvested, and they can replace lumber used by an RV manufacturer. And he's currently importing that lumber from China and Italy. So everybody wins in this. The city of Elkhart, Indiana gets to stretch its dollars. We get to demonstrate new ways to remediate brownfields. And the RV manufacturer cuts their cost, which means they can keep people employed, and we get less carbon emissions. Those kinds of public sector partnerships are just beginning, and I think they're really very exciting. Then the final thing I want to mention is the emphasis on social enterprise and social entrepreneurship. I was just at the Social Enterprise Alliance conference last week, and before that I was at the Social Venture Conference. Both were overflowing. I couldn't believe the number of nonprofits at both conferences. People who are really trying to figure out this puzzle of earned income. How do we create something of value that somebody will buy and still keep our nonprofit status? And there are lots and lots of creative ways that that's being done, and it's very exciting. And while it's difficult sometimes, as we know from the YMCAs, to have a health club that produces all of your income, we also know that there are new structures, LC3, B corporations. You can actually, in fact, create an LLC, pay taxes on that income, and take all the profit into the nonprofit. So that's very exciting, and speaks to the creativity of the sector. So when I think of the title of this panel, Networking, Collaboration, Advocacy, I would underscore their importance to the nonprofit sector, and I would add 2 more words: innovation and persistence. And that will ensure the survival of our sector, which I think is really critical going forward. So thank you. I'll take questions later.